I asked, you said yes, so I made the drive to see Anora before it came to my local theater. Was it worth my time? With one of my favorite filmmakers, Sean Baker. Let's discuss.
Annie, I got a kid who wants someone who speaks Russian. Let's go.
No, I'm eating my food.
You're killing me. He's a spender. Come on, let's go.
So Anora, a young sex worker from Brooklyn, meets and impulsively marries the son of an oligarch. Once the news reaches Russia, her fairy tale is threatened as his parents set out for New York to get the marriage annulled. So the movie's rated R for strong sexual content, graphic nudity, pervasive language, drug use. It is a film about a sex worker, and so there are going to be a lot of sexual scenes, and Mikey Madison has to go all out here, do everything that she is asked to do, but she does it so well. She is one of the most compelling characters of the year because of this path that she chooses to go down, what she believes is going to come from this fairy tale that ensues, and something that plays out in her head, I feel like, a lot differently than what actually happens in this film, because the road to madness here is long, but it's also one that keeps you on the edge of your seat from the moment it takes off. Now, it doesn't really take off until about 30 to 40 minutes in. If you're watching this for the first 20 minutes and you're sitting back going, is all this just a vehicle to show us that she is a sex worker? Because we get that. Now, I like the fact that Sean Baker chose to really showcase that, flesh out her character within that first 30 minutes. And, you know, some may see it as one thing that goes a bit overboard, but others will watch that and go, okay, I feel like they are preparing us for something here, for an unexpected emotional journey that brings out the empathy and kindness, warmness, caringness of her character, because she has this idea in mind once she understands what she's in for, and that does not play out well for her. It kind of reminds me of Uncut Gems, how that takes you on a relentless journey that is nonstop, very fast-paced. It is as relentless as any movie that I've watched this year, in a funny way, in a real way, in a grounded way, in a way that showcases some fascinating, often hilarious dynamics between characters, but also something that it's stressful. This is a stressful movie. I know it doesn't seem that way in the beginning of that trailer, but once it kicks in, it really kicks in. Once I got out of the movie, in my tweet, I said, Sean Baker is one of the most intimate and personal filmmakers alive right now. In the prime of doing what he does best, I would put him in the top 3 in those specific categories, because he showcases the beauty while contrasting that with the ugliness of, in this case, being a sex worker. He's done this before in movies like The Florida Project, which is one of my favorite movies that A24 has ever done. And to be honest with you, it's hard for me to put Anora above that, because that film meant so much to me. So much, I even drove to the location to see where that was filmed. Beautiful movie. But this is very different while keeping all of the things that we know and love about him intact. It is so grounded. It is so personal. You are so present with Annie in the midst of her decision-making, and she's working in an industry that just is not kind to anyone. It treats whoever decides to do that in a bad way, because a lot of people can be disrespectful and ugly, and we see this case where she finds this Russian oligarch who promises a lot and has so much to offer at the start. And so it almost feels like we begin with her using him, because that obviously happens. And then the script begins to flip when she really opens up as the kind of person that she is, and that is kind and gentle and tender and all of these things that you start to see from her, and you're like, well, we know this is going to go wrong, but how is it going to go wrong? And that journey that ensues, it really shows how strong of a person she is, but also all of the nonsense that she's had to put up with, I'm sure, working in this industry, but how that keeps piling up with this specific instance and eventually escalates to what we get, which is Russian madness. I love the fact also that they decide to speak Russian in certain moments, and that's why she's paired up with him to start, because she does speak Russian, and so they're able to communicate in that way. And obviously she's like, well, I'm going to get a better payday if I'm able to schmooze him up a little bit. But then she grows way more fond of the situation. And this kid, this boy, and that's what he is, right? He's a spoiled kid with a lot of money, and he goes wherever he wants to go, does whatever he wants to do. And you can see that there are emotions there for Annie at the beginning of the movie. And so they say, hey, you know what? Let's go get hitched. And that's when this movie starts to take off. And what Baker's movies also do very well, it's putting you in the shoes of the characters that we are following and the situation that we often find ourselves in as a viewer, feeling sympathy, but also understanding that people in these situations are more human than a lot of people give them credit for. And that is showcased so beautifully. It's also kind of like a Cinderella story in a way. She falls in love and escapes from the industry that she's in very briefly and lives out this romantic fantasy for a brief bit. And there are so many things in there that are beautiful about this. But as everything begins to unravel and that final half of the movie plays out, you're just sitting back like, I haven't been able to take a breath. I had to use the bathroom at a point. I should have went within the first 30 minutes because admittedly, while we are learning about her and about them and about why he's there, why she's there, there are times where it does move a little slow, right? But you're building up those characters understandably so. Also, if you don't like the idea that this movie is about a sex worker and you're going to see a lot of sex, this is not going to be for you. I'm not going to scold you for that because a lot of people will. If you don't like that kind of thing, you're not going to like this movie. That is a fact, but it's all building to something. And once we are unleashed, it is full-fledged. You gotta go. And the injection of humor in there, that's what's so grounded and real about Sean Baker's movies, like Red Rocket and obviously The Florida Project, is there is humor found in places where one would not think humor could be found. Because a lot of these movies that handle this type of story, character study situation, will not ground it in reality and just keep things serious the whole time or keep things sad the whole time. It's like, no, we are humans. We cope with these things and these horrible situations like what Annie finds herself in with humor and with a bit of wit, with a handful of comebacks along the way. And the relationships that build and grow, some unexpected ones in that second half, I found to be extremely charming, but also just realistic. There is one relationship that's formed specifically in the third act that I thought was genuinely it's one of my favorite relationships of the year, how they interact with each other, how they talk to each other, speak to each other, kind of consistently getting their jabs in, but also Annie is not in a good place. Life was on a great trajectory, and then all of a sudden it hits her right in the face, and one would think that would make for a miserable experience, and in its own way it is, but it's also like I can just kind of get super invested into this journey because everyone there is on a mission to do something and to prove something, and when reality hits, and when it hits her specifically, it's brutal. And it comes across in a brutal way. That is real. Sean Baker is real. He is that filmmaker. And I really respect that. Two more things to mention on a technical level. It's great. Drew Daniels and his cinematography is exquisite. It is vibrant and vivid, gorgeous the entire time. The cinematography. There's a one take towards the end of this movie that was incredible in every way, but just the way the camera moves and the way that the lights in the background are showcased, contrasting our characters and some of the darker situations that they're in. When they're in the nightclubs and the strip clubs, just the way these scenes look are fantastic. And then Mikey Madison, who I've basically talked about this entire time, how grounded, how real, how authentic she is. And she has to do a lot here, man. She is naked for a lot of this movie, which is going to throw a lot of people off. But that's what she had to do for us to grow with this character, to learn about her circumstances and situations, to start to see who she really is, because the image that she is giving, we think we know who she is, but then she starts to open up and you're like, no, I love this. And she's also a little bit badass, man. When she's fighting back a little bit, and I mean that you'll see what happens in this movie, but when she's fighting back, I'm like, all right, I love this. Like, keep going. This is super entertaining, really funny. She is giving it her all. And the final scene, you can interpret it in different ways. I have my thoughts. I believe I understand why Sean Baker ended it that way. Another testament to her performance. I'm going to be a little surprised if she doesn't get an Oscar nomination. There are still a lot of movies I need to see, but at this point in the year, I'll be surprised. She is that good. Austin, you got to have negatives. My biggest complaint is I believe the movie is 20 minutes too long. Like I said, I did feel like that first third was necessary, but it does move a little slow. There were moments that I think we could have trimmed. There were times where I said, yeah, this relationship they're building, it feels a little repetitive. We get it. They're both young and dumb. We were all young and dumb at one point, and that is showcased brilliantly. One character more dumb than the other. You'll see who that is. But I do believe we could have sped it up just a little bit. The pacing, while relentless in the second half, isn't as relentless in the first half, and you could have trimmed it a little bit, but not the biggest deal in the world, because character studies, that's kind of what you do. Before I give you my score, what did you think about Anora? What is your favorite Sean Baker movie so far? And if you'd like to see me review Heretic and Blitz, drop that thumbs up down below and let me know which movie would you rather me review. I've got a long weekend ahead, a lot of traveling. I'm going to another Steelers game, of course, but I will make time. And Sean Baker is, like I said, one of the most intimate and personal filmmakers of our time. Anora explores humanity to its core and manages to find humor in even the most difficult circumstances. It is provocative and sexy, while remaining poignant and even heartbreaking at times. Mikey Madison is phenomenal, bringing the tenderness to Annie that requires some patience to find. The movie just feels so real on every level, and it's impeccably shot. Like I said, a little long, that's okay. There were moments where I felt like we could have kept this under 2 hours, but overall, this is cinema, baby. It's cinema. What everybody's looking for in Sean Baker. If you don't like him, that's fine. I love him. Give me more Sean Baker, not Chandler. I don't want any more from you, Sean Chandler. I'm just kidding. All right, see ya.